Before I start this video today, I'm going to mention this program called Prog, a fantastic podcast that talks about progressive rock and usually has a lot of guest stars from many different bands come over and talk. It's a fantastic place if you want to check out new music, and you also get to hear the most delicious voice you'll ever hear in any podcast ever. And also add to that fact is that the guy who does the Prog Watch even mentioned me in one of his podcasts. Take a listen.
Finally, I've got a dedication to a listener named Luca Elliot Sanderson from Norway. Luca has his own music-related YouTube channel called Ezio Monty 117. That's all one word, Ezio-Monty 117, where he tries to spread the word on good music.
Pretty cool, huh? So yeah, that was all I was gonna say. Now let's get back into the video. Enjoy. Hello everybody, it's Ezio Monty 117 here, and today we're going to do a little special, a Prog review special. Why this is special, you may ask? Well, today we're going to review a band that not only did I see live, not only did I get it played on Prog Watch, which you saw in the sponsor I just did earlier in this video, but also that, I don't know, there's just something about them just strikes to me, like, compared to many other bands I have heard in this genre, and I thought I'd just make a special out of it. Also because I'm doing it in honor of the new release of this so-called band. And today we are going to check out an album by the band Black Peaks. You remember them, right? I mentioned them in my Perfect Circle video.
There's even a good warm-up band as well, which I was going to mention as well. There's a warm-up band before the band came in called Black Peaks. There's one track in particular that stood out, and that was a track called I Say You Will. Like the vocalist was screaming, and he was running around and jumping, and the drummer was just kicking ass. The guitarist, it was hard. I had a hard time being the guitarist, but when he did kick ass, he kicked ass. The bass was tight. They just kicked ass, and they were a lot of fun to watch.
And today's album we are going to talk about is Statues. Statues is the first album by the UK progressive rock band Black Peaks. As you saw from the video I just showed you, I knew Black Peaks from when I saw them live as a warm-up band for Perfect Circle. And my god, did I really enjoy them. They were just a blast to watch. So I only figured that I'd check out their debut album, which was the only album from them that existed at the time, because their new album hasn't been released yet. And my god, I was not expecting this much crunch and so much great songwriting from a band this early. And while after so many listens now, I can definitely notice a lot of flaws in this album, and it is not a perfect album, I will say that this is a solid debut from the band. And so let's just talk about this album, shall we? Let's first talk about the production. The production on this album is definitely better than most modern releases I've heard from progressive rock bands or progressive metal bands. Well, some of the bass work on here is buried, and it is a bit polished in places. I can say that the production here is dynamic, well layered, and crunchy, especially in the drum department. The drums on this album are perfectly sound. Like, Jesus, you can hear every tom, snare, kick, and it just sounds so crunchy and wonderful. Just, ugh. Some of the vocals sound pretty good as well. Like, sometimes some of the backing vocals that you'll hear is a bit far back, which is a bit sad. And some of these vocal harmonies that are going on in the background are really pretty. But nonetheless, I don't have a lot of complaints to say about the production. I would say that this band's way more energetic and live. That'll tell you much, because the way these guys play live is unbelievable, and it's nothing compared to how it sounds studio. But the production on here is incredibly stellar. Speaking of vocals, let's talk about the vocalist. And my god, he's probably the best thing about this album, next to the drums, of course. And he just delivers in every cylinder. He can go from screaming to using a baritone voice, to doing falsettos, to doing like punk rock voices. He's basically like Mike Patton but reborn, and my god, he just sounds wonderful throughout this. And I said one vocal highlight throughout this I have to say is with the song Hang 'Em High, which I will talk about in a bit. He just belts throughout that song. Like, Jesus, the screams and how he does it, and it doesn't sound contrived, and it sounds like he's really in agony, which is exactly what happens in the song. And it just packs with so much punch. This guy has a lot of emotional vocal performances as well in songs like Drones, Say You Will, and in Glassville Castles. So I have to give a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 to the vocals. So then we get to the main attraction of this album, which is, of course, the songs. While most of the songs on here are really, really good, since this album has 11 songs and it's 50 minutes long, there is bound to be a few missteps here and there. But let's just talk about the highlights first. The album opener, Glassville Castles, is a fantastic way of opening up this album. The furious drum intro, the fast-paced riffs, the beautiful verses, which is a great contrast to the hard-hitting anthemic chorus, and as well as the fast-paced instrumental sections, the complex time changes that are gone throughout this song. It is just a brilliant way of opening up this album, and it's also relatively accessible as well with the aforementioned anthemic chorus. Next highlight goes to Say You Will, which is even better. It's definitely a more progressive song than Glassville Castles. It starts out with a fantastic drum intro, which has a cool quality to it, and then you get some good bass work, really reminiscent of Muse, and then you get some of the most emotional vocal performances you get in this album. The way it builds and the plenty of change-ups the song has, the amazing instrumental sections, it is just a fantastic tune and definitely a blast to listen to live. Then we get the next song, which is with Hang 'Em High, the most complex song on the album. It starts with some math rock-like riffs and some really, really hard-hitting vocals, which I talked about earlier, being just, ugh. The main verse melody is repeated quite a bit throughout this song, but it's not a huge deal. And then in the second half of the song, it starts quietening down, but the vocals are still heavy, and then the song just becomes like a stoner metal song near the end, and it ends on a rather long, let's be honest, psychedelic breakdown, which is really reminiscent of something you'd hear from Robert Fripp. Hang 'Em High is just a brilliant tune, and while it's not nearly as good as Say You Will or Glassville Castles or even the other highlights on the album, it is still a fantastic tune. Then we get Set in Stone, which is relatively commercial compared to some of the other songs on here, as it follows a verse-chorus structure, but it still packs plenty of punch. There's even a guitar solo on here that is just really, really, really good. It's probably like the only guitar solo you even get on this album. There's a great breakdown with some heavy ascending doom riffs. It's just a brilliant tune. Then we get Savior. Ugh, this is a hard hitter. While most of the song is a bit too similar to something you would hear by Mars Volta, especially Areotarca, it still has great vocals, especially in the second half, plenty of change-ups, and some really, really good drum work, especially in this song in particular. The drum work here is just brilliant. Again, great song. Then we get Drones, which is pretty much a precursor to some of the more progressive songs you will get on the next album, which is All That Divides. It starts out with this really post-rock-like intro, which is a nice way of setting up an atmosphere for the song, and then it just gets heavy, and again, the vocals are just killing it as usual, and then it goes into this quiet breakdown, which is so filled with dynamics and great use of layering that, it's beautiful. And it ends really well as well by ending on the way it began. Again, just a brilliant tune, and definitely one of the best songs on the album. Then we get the last highlight on this album with White Eyes. This is probably the most alt-rock song on here, especially with its chorus, which is still a good chorus. Again, it has fantastic change-ups, great use of time signatures, fantastic vocal work, frantic drums, a great instrumental section, especially near the end, and great use of dynamics. Again, just a brilliant song, and probably my favorite on the album, if it wasn't for Say You Will, which is my personal pick for best song on the album. Then we have Everything Else. My least favorite track on the album by far is with the single Crooks. Really dull, really unimaginative chorus, an instrumental section that goes nowhere. I have nothing to add about this song. Let's move on. The next misstep is with Statues of Shame, which is a bit more interesting musically, but again, it's just really dull chorus, really dull instrumental section, and it sounds way too similar to some of the other tracks on the album. So it's just not a lot of stuff happens here. Now we get an instrumental track, which is called For Those Who Are About to Sleep Are Almost Soon to Wake. I think that's what it's called, I can't remember. It's an extremely long title. And it's just some plodding post-rock song that doesn't really have any point, and it's just pointless. And then we get the closer, which you think is supposed to end the album on a good note, but it just ends on a rather tasteless note, which is called To Take the First Turn, which includes the vocalist Jamie Lehman. And it's really repetitive. Like they repeat, like near the end, they just repeat the riff over and over again, and it doesn't really feel satisfying. It just comes off as tedious and annoying. The vocals aren't that interesting, and I said the drumming is good as usual. The drumming throughout this entire album is fantastic, but still, it just leaves me tasteless, and it could have been a better closer. So final thoughts on Statues. It's a really solid release. And while it's not as good as the next album they would release, which I will talk about in the near future, it does have some really good moments. That's and really great songs as well. That's that the guitar work on here is strong and varied throughout. Well, for the most part, I'll get to that in a bit. The drum work is stellar. The bass work is just tight, and the vocals are some of the best I have heard in modern music. Let me get like some of the downsides. Some of the production isn't always the best, as the bass work is a bit hard to hear at times. There's a lot of repetition throughout, especially in the riffs department. Like some of the riffs are just straight up reused, especially with stuff like Set in Stone and White Eyes. Like the end riff of Set in Stone is used in White Eyes in the instrumental section. There's some songs that aren't the most progressive. It's kind of a stupid complain that some songs aren't progressive, because this is supposed to be an accessible album as well, but there's a few songs that do feel kind of boring and not needed, because it is just pretty much similar to some of the others, to every other song on here, especially stuff like To Take the First Turn and Statues of Shame, which are just pointless filler in my opinion. And like I said, it could have been shorter. I don't know. Some of the songs did feel a bit long. But nonetheless, this is a solid release from Black Peaks, and it's definitely exciting to see if these guys can go big, because these guys are definitely good stuff. So yeah, that's my review. Hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you till next time. Peace.